You're listening to The Brian Mansell Show, streaming exclusively on Spotify and YouTube. New episodes every Monday and Friday. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Brian Mansell Show. As always, I'm your host, Brian Mansell, and I've got a podcast, or a podcast, whatever you want to call it. To me, this is a podcast dedicated to everything that has to do with the amazing game of American football. Now, we cover everything. We'll talk high school ball, we'll talk college ball, we'll talk pro ball. Hey, if you want to talk about the UFL or the spring leagues or even the indoor football league, which, by the way, they're pretty viral on social media right now, we'll talk about all of it. We are completely open because what are we here for? For the love of the game of football. That's why we're here. Now, today we have a lot to talk about, and this last week hasn't had as many intense stories as we've seen in previous weeks, but there is still stuff notably to talk about. Some major stories out there. One of the big ones is going to be more college football focused, especially for this episode today. And it's Ed Orgeron, for example, going back to LSU. He's going to be on Lane Kiffin's staff. So he won't be head coaching again, but he's going to be on his staff. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get there. But also, there's a quote coming out of the New Heights podcast from Jason Kelsey proposing the idea that maybe Sunday football is getting bland. I mean, he doesn't outright say it's bland, but he does say it's losing its charm, in a sense. Like, it's because of the way they're doing the scheduling, the way they're prioritizing international games, that there's more games off Sunday now when they are compared to being on Sunday compared to how it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there wasn't as many international games. There wasn't as many Saturday games, games during the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday. There wasn't any of that. It was one game a week on Thursday, one game a week on Monday, and that was it. And you just had all your other games on Sunday. That was fine. In the last 10 years, that has changed. And so we're going to go into a little bit about that and kind of talk about Jason's quote a little bit and just really answer the question. Does it feel like Sunday football's lost its charm in terms of being a football day? After that, there's a proposal on the table for a 24-team college football playoff. We're going to talk about the pros and cons behind that and if really we think that in the end it should be passed. And then after that, we're going to enter the tape room for the first time this season to talk college football. We have not done that yet. We have not entered the tape room yet to talk college football. We're going to do that for the first time today. We're going to talk about if what Mensah brings to the table is enough to carry the Hurricanes back to the CFP championship once again. Again, if you don't know, they fell short last year to Indiana. So now we're hoping to see if Miami can replicate what they did last season and hopefully close the deal this time around with the brand new quarterback leading the way. And then finally, to close out our feel-good moment of the weekend, I've got an interesting story for you coming out of the sport of baseball for you. But before we get there, we have to get into the show and talk about the news from this past week in the world of football. And so we're going to start this week with our first major story that happened from this past week in this segment, talking about Deshaun Watson. Apparently, he said he holds no ill will towards Cleveland despite the rocky tenure they have had, and believes that Todd Monken's offense can bring out his best. This is coming from Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN. And that raises a couple questions. Why the Browns are giving Watson another QB1 shot? And second, why does Watson take this approach as to him having no ill will towards Cleveland? You see, because I kind of look at this major story and I ask myself, it's really not newsworthy, but it's newsworthy to the fans. And the reason why that is the case is because, I mean, you got to be living under a rock to not know what Deshaun Watson has done up to this point. If you don't know anything that's happened in the last 4 years, 5 years, you really have not been watching a lot of football. You have no idea. And for Watson in this case to turn around and say that he has no ill will towards Cleveland despite all the legal proceedings he went through and all the money that the team paid him to be their starting quarterback and to not perform and not be able to take care of his body the right way, that's a problem. That's a major problem. As one creator puts it, how could he hold any ill will? Because they gave him $230 million fully guaranteed in 2022. He got suspended 11 games for sexual assault on dozens of women, strained his rotator cuff, has broken his shoulder, and he tore his Achilles twice. He's fortunate, really, to get another QB1 shot. It's a little bit of arrogance, actually, to turn around and say, you know, I don't hold any ill will. I got no hard feelings toward Cleveland feeling the way they do. First of all, you should be in the boat to say, I'm sorry for not being the quarterback they were hoping I would be for them. And I'm hoping that with the new opportunity this season, I can change that. And I can turn around the course of this team and kind of hopefully redeem myself in the public eye. This is not what's happening here. By saying you hold no ill will towards the city of Cleveland, you're making it like Cleveland having a problem with you is not okay. And that's the bigger issue, is them having a problem with you than the fact that you did something wrong and never really apologized to the city for how things have gone in your time with them. I don't get that level of entitlement from this quarterback. I don't get it. I don't get it. It comes off as entitlement. And I don't want to, keep ripping on the guy because it gets old after a while. You all know it gets old. So I don't want to continue on this train of constantly giving this attention when we already know that this has gone on for years. We all feel the same way about it. We don't want to talk about it anymore. But when you make these kind of comments, they have to be addressed. So that's a story that's not really a story, but has to be mentioned. Next major story I have for you, it has been announced who is hosting the NFL draft in 2028. In 2 years from now, the Minnesota Vikings will be hosting the NFL draft at US Bank Stadium. The NFL owners approved that move on the 19th, just about a week ago. So I have to say, it's a great city to give it to. Even though they haven't had a lot of success, honestly, in their time as a franchise, the Minnesota Vikings are technically, they're a very good sports city, and they have a very loyal fan base. So I don't think this is a bad idea. I think this is very good. Just like how people have felt a way about Pittsburgh getting it or Cleveland getting it, it didn't change the fact that those are two very loyal fan bases that are going to show up and show out. So that's perfectly fine in my eyes. The next one, we had another major announcement that came out also on that day. The city of Nashville has been given the rights to Super Bowl 64. Yes, I know we're at 61, but they always plan out these Super Bowl venues in advance. Nashville, the Tennessee Titans, will be getting the Super Bowl 64 in 2030. Now, that's a big deal because they are having a new stadium that's going to be in operation, and it's going to change a lot. It's a whole new stadium. It's a whole new identity for this team. I'm looking forward to see what Tennessee is going to look like and how they're going to operate. So the Music City finally gets to host a Super Bowl, I think, for the first time ever. I don't think Tennessee actually ever has hosted a Super Bowl. I don't think there has been a time. This is pretty unique. It's a pretty unique time there in Tennessee. Next up, we have another story from the 19th. Unfortunately, we have to discuss this. Rashee Rice violated his probation. The Chiefs receiver tested positive for marijuana, which goes against his probation. And so he has now been ordered to serve 30 days in jail. So he will miss OTAs and mandatory minicamp with Kansas City. There's still work to see what exactly is going to happen. But he was originally supposed to serve, he's going to have to serve the 30 days he was set to serve. But now he's going to be released in mid-June. So he's going to be going to jail if he's not in jail now. And he's got to spend 30 days there before he can get out and then report back to the team. All because he violated his probation by testing positive for marijuana. Once again, this is going to go back to something I've talked about in previous episodes. It's not just me taking the Christian approach here. It's me taking the logical financial approach as an advisor. Anything you can do, limit your alcohol consumption, limit the gambling as much as you can. Don't gamble, limit your alcohol consumption, and most importantly, for the love of everything, don't get behind a wheel drunk or impaired. Because technically, if you're high and you're driving behind the wheel, you also get hit with the DUI. It's about being smart, okay? No bottle of alcohol is worth losing your career and losing money. No joint is worth going to jail for. No joint is worth losing money for, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars on your contract for, worth prison time in this case, because it was a violation of probation in Missouri. You got to be more aware of what you're doing and how it could affect you in the long run. That's the thing. That's what I was trying to say. Rashee Rice in this case did not take that into account. You already you're already under probation because of an incident involving your vehicle issue, which I do not want to get into also because this has been talked about enough. But now you decided to smoke which again, no problem with you smoking anything you take. But to be testing positive when you're under probation, that's not good. That means while you're under probation, just avoid it. Have somebody there for accountability. That is it. Do not worry about it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Okay, like that's the problem. Have an accountability partner. Do not give in because it's going to affect your career and your money. Why would you lose? Why would you put yourself in that situation? Next up, Aaron Rodgers. We all know he's coming back. We already confirmed it last episode. I feel like this is now 3 or 4 episodes in a row now we've brought him up, but we're going to bring it up again. He was asked about his future at his introductory conference. And first thing you need to know is that he said he thought he was done in Pittsburgh when Tomlin walked away. He was going to retire when Tomlin walked away. But because they signed McCarthy and he's the new head coach, Rodgers decided he wanted to come back to play. He opened his mind up back to playing again, and so he's going to play. He's going to give one more year because he was asked about his future. If this is his final season, he goes, yeah, this is it. So we know for a fact this is Aaron Rodgers' last season in an NFL uniform. That is it. So we're going to see how the Steelers can make the most of this final year with Aaron Rodgers. Next up, the Lions and Jack Campbell, their star linebacker, have agreed to terms on a 4-year deal. No 5th-year option, just a big money contract instead for him. So Jack Campbell staying long-term in Detroit. We love to see that for the young guy. Next, another extension on the way here. We have the Giants and their general manager, Joe Schoen, which to me, that is a shock because there's a lot of talk about Joe Schoen shouldn't even be the general manager. But they've agreed to terms on a multi-year extension to keep him with Harbaugh for years to come. After a successful offseason, including the work during the NFL draft, he's rewarded with the new deal. Honestly, there's no arguing that. If you want to make your arguments about how Schoen has done stuff in the past, that's fine. How he's doing stuff now, can't argue it. Everything he's done working with Harbaugh has been perfect up to this point. No arguments, no debates here. I'm on board. I'm okay with this extension as long as this dynamic continues. If Harbaugh gets fired, Shane's got to go with him at this point. I definitely think that's the answer. I didn't want to give much attention to this, but this will be the final story we talked about. It's been talked about on multiple different creators, especially people in the Giants space, but we're going to close out in the New York Giants here. There was some Giants drama this past weekend. In short, Jaxson Dart was at a Trump rally and introduced the president. So he was on stage with him and did his intro. So there has been a stark amount of division on this topic, and I'm going to take the approach that Dan Duggan did here, and I'm going to keep it apolitical. Because if I do get political, we're going to have problems on this show, because this show is not supposed to be getting political, but I already know the comments on this poster, on this video, and on this podcast will be saying, why won't you talk about it? Why do you want to keep politics out if he didn't keep politics out? What he does is what he does. That's his actions as an adult. For me as a person, I have the right as well to decide if I want to talk about it or not. I want it to be understood here what my number one concern is, because my concern is very different from others. A lot of people are focused on the fact that it's Trump, that he's introducing Trump, and that it is the worst thing to do is to introduce him. That's the number one thing I've been seeing, is just this constant trend that this is because he shouldn't have been there with Trump and because he shouldn't associate himself with Trump, which I completely get and I completely understand, because really any kind of association with him is pretty much a downfall to your career long term. Let's be honest. But beyond that, I'm more concerned about the other side. I'm more concerned about the fact that this is going to affect team chemistry. Your star quarterback has been a huge help to your franchise. He's a huge part of your future for your franchise. You also have a lot of other players on your team, and the quarterback is not the only player that matters on that team. When you go out and put yourself in these situations, when you know that as of right now, over half the country does not like the man you are associating with. In fact, they quite literally hate him. You are putting yourself in a situation to be alienated by the locker room. And as the leader of your team, as a quarterback, you cannot allow yourself to be alienated and treated differently and treated as if you are worth nothing and that you aren't a leader and that you don't care about these guys. You can't afford to let that image take over for you. So that's more my issue here. It's been said that guys like Malik Neighbors are anti-Trump. And even though he hasn't publicly come out and said anything or done anything to indicate that, people suggest by his behavior and his actions whenever it's brought up, he does not like Trump. And Abdul Carter even put out saying, what are we doing, bro? Genuinely, what are we doing? Why are you there? And so you already know that some of the star players have issue with this, the other stars on the team. And then it has to be addressed by Abdul Carter saying, oh, like, don't worry, there's no issue. There's no issue. If you think there's a problem between me and my quarterback, you're crazy, whatever. Like, we got it. We're good. A little gaslighting game. But beyond this, Duggan makes the very good point that I agree with, saying that the main challenge Harbaugh is going to have is the major personalities on this team. Neighbors' personality. We're talking Carter. We're talking Dart. We're talking Scattaboo. There's going to be a bunch of different personalities on this team, some larger than others, that are going to have larger egos in turn, and it's going to be hard to get all of that under control so that we create an equal and level team in terms of respect and performance. I don't know how else to really put that, but that's really the issue here. Because there is no need to get into the political side of things, because I'm sure everybody listening already understands the politics. They already understand the logistics. You've already read the news enough. Why do I, who as a podcaster and a football person who's literally says I strictly deal with football, why do I need to give my opinion on something that has nothing to do with what my expertise is in? If you want somebody to give you an answer with their own expertise, that's what the news channels are for. That's what the political commentators are for. Don't come to me. I'm here for the football perspective. And my football perspective is this is a divisive move. This is a move that's going to split the locker room, and now it's going to create much more strain on Harbaugh to keep everybody in check and keep them working under the same goal of winning a Super Bowl and winning a championship and become a winning franchise again. That is the number one problem I have with this. And I've already know it because I've seen it in other comments too. Let a grown man do what a grown man wants to do. Sure, but also let him use his brain and realize the fact that you're in a room with a guy that's extremely divisive. That's going to very much upset half the locker room. So let's be real here. Avoid alienating yourself by going into these situations. Okay, first of all, I've also seen that there's been signs that this guy was a Trump supporter even back when he was at Ole Miss. But it doesn't change the fact that, look, if you're going to... Now this is where this is going to get controversial. If you're going to support a guy, you don't have to put it on blast. Okay? I would say about 80% of this country does not share their political beliefs. The majority of the country does not share their political beliefs. They keep it to themselves. They keep it internalized. They don't have to come out and tell the world, I support this guy. I'm a Trump supporter. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I hate all the government. There's no need to have to come out and admit that or say that. What your beliefs are your beliefs, and you could keep that to yourself. You have that exclusive right to keep that private. You don't have to share that information. But unfortunately, when you do stuff like this, you make it public. And when you make it public, you open yourself up to scrutiny. And that's what happens. Okay, it would be the same deal and the same problem too with other players if, let's say, I'm going to give a good example. Let's say Russell Wilson was still on the team and he was at a Kamala Harris rally. Okay, and he was with Kamala Harris, or he was at a Biden rally and he was supporting and he was opening up for Biden. There would be a divisiveness in the fan base, and I'm sure some guys' locker room would take some same issue here. Okay, so it's not just isolated to because it's the fact that it's Trump. It's because of the fact, from a football perspective, it looks like you're taking a side. And when you take a side, it's like it does something to someone mentally. It makes them believe that you are closed-minded, that you've made your decision, and you're opened yourself up to judgment. And unfortunately, we all get judged for everything we do. That's what happens. So in this case, like I said, I don't want to give any more attention to this. Just understand the fact this is not good for team chemistry. This is going to put a hole in the team and drive a wedge. If this is not addressed correctly, this is going to affect team performance this year. I'm not even exaggerating it. So let's make sure we get this squashed so that the Giants can have the best season possible this year. That is all I have to say on the Jaxson Dart stuff. I don't want to go any further. We're going to leave it there. We're also going to leave this segment where it is right now. That is it for our This Week in Football segment. Now let's talk about the next big thing here. And my next big thing I want to talk about has to do with a quote coming from, I want to say, Jason Kelce on the New Heights podcast. And, he brings up a good point about Sunday football and where it has gone ever since all the international games, the games at different times during the day. We've kind of hit this point where we don't get football as much on Sundays. There's not as much intrigue or interest in watching games on Sunday because unless your team is playing, there's not many great games on television. And I think that's a very fair argument. And I think that when we look at what Jason Kelce has to say, we'll see that there's a good argument here to make involving this issue.
I don't think we're there yet. Sunday is the day of football, right? Outside of going to church in the morning, if you're still religious and you do that, Sunday is like where so many games happen. And that's what you grow up and you gear your entire week around watching football on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's an institution at this point, the NFL playing games on Sunday. With every day that we keep adding in there, we're getting away from that just a little bit. And I worry that I think the game got big. One of the reasons it got so popular and big was because all of the game, it was an event. Sunday is the NFL. And everybody set their week apart to tune into their games that were happening on Sunday. And you're watching kind of all of them now take place across Sunday Ticket, right? I worry that we're getting away from that just a little bit by building too many of this.
Now, he doesn't outright explain what exactly that means when he says this, but I think it's kind of insinuated what he's trying to say. And for me, what that basically means is we're going towards this perspective now where we're prioritizing international games and games on random days of the week around holidays that, are out of character for the NFL. And so it's kind of almost a way for the NFL in itself to strengthen their grip on things, right? I feel like that's very important to note. Like, it's just for them to strengthen their grip on the sports market in the fall, which I completely understand, from a competitive perspective, that's very important to do. However, I think there are limits to that. And in this case, you trade away important, valuable things here. For example, yes, there are still a lot of games that happen. It's going to be that way early in the season on Sundays. And Jason even says it here. He does say that we haven't necessarily reached that point where Sunday football is becoming almost obsolete, but we are trending in a direction where that could happen because now we have games that are airing on Tuesdays. We have a game on Tuesday this year. We have a game on Wednesday. We have always had Thursday football, Monday football. We're going to have Friday football this year for a few games. We're going to have Saturday football towards the end of the season, especially on holidays, and obviously Sunday football. But all those days during the week, you take away from the primetime element that comes from Sundays. As a kid growing up, I loved watching football on Sunday. Because again, at the time, my team was not very good. And because they weren't very good, they didn't get a lot of primetime games. They weren't playing on NFL Network for Thursday Night Football. They weren't playing on ESPN on Monday Night Football. Not very often. But when it came down to it, I loved the fact that we could get Sunday Ticket and that we could be on DirecTV and that we could watch all of our games there. Every team game. It wasn't expensive. We just paid for our team. We paid for Red Zone. That is it. And we would just sit there and we'd watch it, and then we'd keep track of our fantasy teams. And that was fun. For me, that was fun. That was enough for me. I'd be sitting there just watching Mike Glennon throw a game against the Cardinals, against Carson Palmer. I'm just watching like this. I'm like, oh, so we really are bad. But the point is, I had the opportunity to watch these games myself on Sundays. And it was a great part of my day. It's a relationship that I was able to have with my dad. We could sit down, we'd grab a bunch of snacks the day before. I'm on the couch seated at 12 o'clock watching the pregame show, going straight into my game. Me and my dad are sitting down together watching the game. Come on, Bucks, let's go. And like, that's just, that was what I found was fun. And it was a good relationship for me and my dad to bond over, was the game of football as well as sports. That's what we bonded over. And I think for a lot of people, they feel the same way. They bonded with friends and family over the same thing about football on Sundays, watching their team, And I think the primetime element, the more you spread those games out, the more you take those opportunities away, mainly because for the younger audience, whether that be you're in high school or you're in middle school, if you're watching this, I'd be wondering why you're watching this, but it's okay. But what it ends up coming out to, right? It's pretty simple. You take away opportunities for people to embrace this with their friends and family, because now schedules get conflicted. Sundays, for the most part, people are off from work and they're not watching and they're not working. They're off day. They get to be home with their families. They're not working the 6 days a week. This is their day to watch and enjoy it. But once you put those games on Thursday, they're too tired to watch it on Thursday night with their kids. Now the kids are watching the games by themselves, wondering why they can't watch with their parents. You get to Monday night, same deal. First day of the week, the worst day of the work week, and people are tired. They don't want to stay up and watch a football game. They want to go to sleep to make sure they could actually function and work tomorrow. It's a real thing. And that's my concern overall for this. Sunday is a great day for ball and for religion. Okay, because nowadays it means more to me for faith, for church, for God. But also, it's a day that I can go to church. I can spend my day at church. I can pray. I can do my worships. I can meet with people, talk with people there, and then be home right before the game starts and be able to sit down and watch the games and track them live. And I've always loved having that flexibility. But the more games that get moved off of Sundays, the more we lose that charm that we had and that experience we used to have with our family. It kind of kills that nostalgia and that experience for us. Kind of kills the child in us. You get what I'm saying? I feel like that's kind of where we're approaching here. And that's what Jason's trying to say, but not say it. He's trying to say essentially that. And do I think Sunday football is necessarily losing its charm? No. I don't think you can necessarily lose it. But if there's less games available to watch, especially of your teams on those days, why? Why bother watching? That's another thing. If you are just literally in it for your team and your team is barely on Sundays, why watch the games? Why watch any other game on Sunday? It kills your own viewership. It kills the viewership for the NFL. And that's important too. Like, if the Chiefs are playing 8 of their 17 games on primetime, and it's a mix, it's like Fridays and Thursdays and Sunday nights, and that changes things too. That impacts a lot. A good example, most of the workforce here we have in this world is running 9 to 5s or 9 to 7s or 6 to 4s. Like it's late schedules. And so they have to be in work early. And when you have their games on Sunday nights, they can't stay up to watch the whole game. And that impacts a lot. And I'm telling you, it affects family time. It affects family dynamics in terms of being a sports family. I think that's part of it too. Now, obviously, there's going to be arguments from other people who feel certain ways, but I do think it really does kill the family element of football. Football was something you watch with the family and your friends. That's what it is for. It's a family game. As much as people want to argue because of how violent it is and the contact and everything, how aggressive it is, maybe it's not, but it is. It really is. And that's what I think is going on. I don't necessarily think it's lost its charm yet. But I think if we continue going down this way, it's going to get worse. But that's going to bring us into another major story that I kind of want to go into here about the college football playoff. Now, the 2014 playoff idea, this has been proposed by the Big Ten, and they are very much in favor of this. They very much like this idea. But teams like the conferences like the SEC have to be on board in order for this to get passed. If the SEC and the Big Ten are on opposite sides of this proposal, then that would mean that this playoff is dead, that this will not happen, and we'll be sticking with 12 teams. 12 teams has led to some nice, cool moments like this past year where Miami made a miraculous run to get to the championship. But on the other hand, you've had more blowouts of teams that didn't feel like they should have been there. Now, obviously, I have my own pros and cons about this. I feel like financially, this could be super helpful for a lot of teams. A lot of teams could find huge benefit in this and have more at stake. At least in my theory. My theory would be that they would have more conference champions in, and the conference championships would still matter quite a bit. But if that's not the case, that changes things. I think with this proposal in place by the Big Ten, it completely disregards conference champions. Which, if that is the case, I'm out. I'm completely out on that. But in terms of the pros here, if you were to do a proposal where conference champions held more weight, then I think I could justify the fact of expanding the 24. Because you're offering up more opportunities for these teams that are in the group of 5 conferences that are not in the Power 4 but are still in the FBS to make more money by making appearances. With teams like, let's say, North Texas, the Mean Green. If they would have won their conference this year, North Texas would be in the playoff probably in my idea of the proposal. And if that's the case, that adds stronger incentive for a team like North Texas to keep competing and for the conferences to compete harder and fight harder. And that means the recruiting efforts would be stronger. The money they spend would be stronger. The NIL stuff would be stronger. I feel like in turns, increasing competition. Think about it like free market economics. Increase the competition with more incentives, and you're promoting stronger competition and more investment in the competition, if you get what I'm saying. Think about it like this, okay? 2 tech giants. We'll go Apple and Samsung in the phone markets, right? Apple and Samsung. They both make phones. They both make computers. They both make devices. This is what they do. We all know that. The two are constantly in competition against each other in terms of trying to hit quotas, trying to be more marketable, to increase their marketing, to increase their sales, and increase investments as well on their stocks. In this case, let's say that there was a cap on how much product they could sell and what they could sell it for. That would change the way the free market works because it's no longer free. It limits the competition, which means you can't sell it for a maximum price. You can't oversell. You can't undersell. You have to keep everything at a locked, fixed price with a cap on how much units you can sell, how many units. So if that ends up becoming a problem, there's no market to compete. You're just trying to hit quotas. And once you hit that quota, your production stops. And essentially, you've won a race, but you've never really won the market because you both eventually hit your quotas in the same year. That's what I mean by capping things off. Now, let's say there's no cap on the units, but you're fixed at the same rates. You both charge the same for the same product. How do you increase the competition? You can increase the competition because now you can sell as much as you want. And as long as it's the same price. And if they're the same prices, like let's say an iPhone's $1,100 and so is the Samsung Galaxy phone, let's say that is both at $1,100. How would you create stronger competition to get people to buy your product more than the competition? You add different features. You promote that yours has stronger battery life. You promote that yours has more storage. You promote that yours has better touchscreen capabilities. One has a built-in AI. You have one that says that you have a modern display that's ahead of its time. You promote the fact that you have the most integrated, or I should say, you should have the most advanced camera system in any other phone on the market. Using those features, people can now decide at the same price what fits more for what I need, for what I want. And now people are going to fight to figure out what is better. And then that creates more competition about, okay, we got to create a better quality phone that people are going to want to buy, that promotes the consumer and helps the consumer more than it does the actual companies, because companies can make as much money as they want on a fixed price and sell as much as they want. That's the difference. Okay? When you compare this now to a 2014 playoff, right? In this case, if you put an incentive in place for all conferences to be a champion, to win and get in the playoff. And if you get in the playoff, you win your conference, you get a financial bonus. That now goes straight to the college. It helps recruiting efforts. It helps with NIL offers. It helps with so much more for them as a university for their athletic programs. And that's huge to me. So now you see teams in the American who could come out and win their division, win their conference, and they'll make a decent amount of money and they'll be able to want to continue competing because they get the financial incentive plus get to compete for a trophy. And that same promise can happen for other teams in that conference. So, and plus for every game you win, you get a little more incentive. That's my point. You create incentives to promote and boost the competition. If you eliminate the conference champions, you take away that competition. Because now it's just the 24 best teams out there. What is to stop the committee from putting in 8 SEC schools, 10 Big Ten schools, 3 ACC schools, and then throwing in another 3 Big 12 schools? 24 teams, but they're all Power 4. What's that? Think about that for a second. Realistically, what's stopping them from doing it? Let's say Michigan State goes on a run next year. Again, they're Big Ten, but they lose 4 games. Okay, they go 8-4. They're an 8-4 team, and they lost to teams like Minnesota. They lost to Michigan. They lost to Ohio State. And we'll say for fun here, they lost to Purdue, who did not have a good record in conference play. So in conference play, they weren't very good. But let's say they beat a team like Clemson randomly, and Clemson was a top 25 team. What happens at that point? Now you have to compare them if they should be in a 2014 playoff compared to a team that is undefeated, but the steepest competition they played was one team that was in a Power 4 conference that they beat, and it was close. The committee would be more likely to give it to somebody who is in the Power 4. That's how it works. So that's my argument I'm making. And if you want a better example of the difference here, let's talk about the conference champions from last season. Let's start here with CUSA. Conference USA. Kennesaw State beat Jacksonville State 19-15. Now that's a bigger deal because Kennesaw State finished their year at 10-4. Does a team that's 10-4 deserve to be in the college football playoff, even though they won their conference? Probably not, but they won their conference. And now they would get a reward out of that because they won the Conference USA and made the college football playoff. You would basically pick the 8 best teams from these conferences. Again, you have American, ACC, Big 12, Big 10, Conference USA. The independents do not apply here. Mid-American, the MAC, the Mountain West, Pac-12, which has been reinvented for this year. We'll talk about that on another episode. The SEC, the Sun Belt, as the 10 total conferences. 8 of them would get an automatic bid as a champion based off the 8 best teams. So in this case, a team like James Madison would get a bye week. In the SEC, the winner of that ended up being Georgia. So Georgia would get their bye week. You go to another team like in the Sun Belt, we already did James Madison, but in the American Athletic, in the American Conference, Tulane beat North Texas. In this case, with Tulane beating North Texas, talking about a team that was 11-3. They would get in over North Texas. In the ACC, who won the ACC last year? Anybody remember? The ACC was won by Duke over Virginia in OT. Duke finished the year at 9-5 despite winning the conference. Does Duke get in because it's a tough conference? They're a Power 4 school? Yes, in this case, it'd be an automatic bid. Big 12, Texas Tech. They'd get an auto bid. Big 10, we already know who won the Big 10. They would get an auto bid, that being the Hoosiers. And you just kind of go through the rest of the list. Does the MAC get in? The MAC has the Western Michigan Broncos at 10-4. Do they get in? That's another important question. Does Western Michigan win the conference? And if they win the conference, should they get in? Yes. But that ends up being internal debates. Do they get in over Boise State? Does Boise State get in? How do you sort it out based off strength? That's where the rankings come in. But either way, 8 of those 10 would become conference champions. That means you have the Power 4 schools would get in. And then you would have 4 teams from the group of 5 that go in. Or in this case, group of 6, we'll call it. But yes, you would have 8 schools go in out of those 10 conferences. I think it's super beneficial for competition as long as there's financial incentive involved to make teams want to continue to fight hard and play. But that's if they were to do that. In this proposal, that's not the case. And then from there, we're talking about the final rankings of how things went, right? The final team college football ranking. The final rankings had Indiana at number 1. Okay? In terms of conference champions, we talked about our 8. After that, you're fighting with another 16 teams to figure out where do they fit. Where do they fit in all of this? Okay, Ole Miss and Miami would be high up on the board. You know Oregon would be up there. You know Ohio State's going to be up there. You know Texas. You know that Texas A&M is going to be in there. You know Alabama and Notre Dame are going to be fighting to get in. BYU, Texas, Oklahoma, Utah, Vanderbilt, Virginia. Iowa would probably have a decent case. And you go back down to USC, Michigan, Houston, Navy, North Texas, TCU. All the schools I'm naming would have fair chances to get in according to the AP Top 25. So, with that in mind, you're giving the small schools opportunities to have home field advantage, 1, and 2, they have the opportunity to compete and play in the playoff. And these other teams, you hear the others, there's not as many of this high competition teams that you see, like the big conference teams in. Not as many because you're allowing the smaller schools to have more spots open to them to compete. And I think that's what I find most attractive about this idea, if it were to go my way. But now we have to look at what it really is, because there is a true trap here. You're going to get major mismatches if you go to the 8-4, 9-3. You will. You're going to have major mismatches. It's going to throw things off. I really mean that. Because if you go through the actual playoff of how it would look in the 2014 model that's truly proposed, I want you to think about this. Because now, this proposal that the Big Ten's putting in place disregards conference champions altogether. So in this case, what would that look like? Conference title games are eliminated. They don't matter. So here's how it would look. Number 1 would be Ohio State. And why is Ohio State number 1? Because there's no way to prove if Ohio State was better than Indiana. Because there's no conference title game. So Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Georgia's 3, 4 is Texas Tech, 5 Oregon, 6 is Ole Miss, 7 is A&M, 8 is Oklahoma. How many of those top 8 teams are Power 4 schools? All of them. They're all Power 4, which now means they all have guaranteed spots. So what does the pool look like for teams that are not in the Power 4? Let's find out together. Number 9, Alabama. Number 10 comes out to Notre Dame. So we have 10 now, because even though Notre Dame is independent, they're tied to the ACC mainly. So that's 10. Let's get to 11. 11 here is BYU. Big school. That's Big 12. Fine. Miami's 12. 12 for 12 on Power 4 schools. 13, Texas. We're still going. 14, Vanderbilt. 15, Utah. 16, USC. 16 for 16 on Power 4 schools. Number 17, let's get to it. 17, Virginia. 18, Arizona. 19, Michigan. 20, Tulane. It took us to number 20 to get to a non-Power 4 school in Tulane. After that, 21's Houston. Power 4 again. 22, Georgia Tech. Power 4. 23, Iowa. Power 4. 24, North Texas. Keep in mind, North Texas and Tulane were in the same conference together in the conference championship game. So it's the same conference. Of the 24 teams, only 2 of them would be from the small conferences in this proposal. To me, that is terrible. That is a terrible way to look at it. Now, keep in mind, what's going to make this worse in terms of the cons of this, so the structure of it is one of the main things I have a problem with. I don't like the structure of the college football playoff under this proposal. You got to put more emphasis on the conference title games because that's how you promote the competition for teams to keep wanting to play and increase their NIL spending and increase their funding from their alumni network. Anyway, what does that mean for Rivalry Week? Because Rivalry Week has a lot of weight into what happens in the conference championship game. In real life, Michigan needed a miracle upset with Ohio State to have any chance of getting in the playoff. Instead, they lost by 18. Now, if we were in the 2014 format, Michigan would not have to worry because they'd be in, regardless, comfortably. There would be no argument about them getting in. Alabama had to beat Auburn to keep their spot in the CFP field and ended up blowing a 17-point lead before rallying late in the game to win. Meanwhile, Oklahoma had to beat LSU to hold on to a berth and trailed with 5 minutes left before they scored late in the game. In a 24-team format, neither Oklahoma or Alabama would have had to worry about it, and they would have been in no matter what. And not as like a 18 or 17. We're talking about like an 8 and a 9. Texas and Vanderbilt, they had to play their rivals, Texas A&M and Tennessee, in order to get in. And that's just for hope that there could be some kind of chaos that they could squeeze their way in. And they did win, but they didn't get the chaos with it. But in a 2014 format, they're both in no matter what. Even in theory, with the Georgia Tech game, facing Georgia, that could have actually had playoff stakes with a 2014 format. But in the committee, they actually boosted the Yellow Jackets' chances here. They boosted the odds in the rankings for them after they lost to the Dogs. So honestly, with that boost from that loss, it means they would have been in no matter what because of the competition. So that means there's only 2 rivalry games in the end that would have been enhanced by this format. Arizona would have been in the spot of Arizona State in the field with a 23-7 win in the Territorial Cup, which is their regional battle. And Virginia would have clinched both the ACC title and a CFP berth with a 27-7 win over Virginia Tech. And then meanwhile, Tennessee gets beaten so badly by Vandy that the Vols would have actually fallen out, resulting in some solid chaos. And also at that point, SMU would have fallen out too because they would have had their upset loss with the Cal Golden Bears. And then that leads to the replacement of by Iowa, who ended up blowing out Nebraska that week. And then in theory also, North Texas would be in too because they would be blowing out Temple. So it does change the landscape of things and the back end, which is pretty cool. But like I said, we went through this whole thing, and you're noticing that the number one trend here is that the rivalries no longer matter. And when the rivalries don't matter, that changes the game. Why would you want to watch a college football game if nothing is changing? If there's no real stakes on the line? Why would you care in conference games if there's no stake in the conference games anymore? Why in the world would you be invested in any form of college football competition if you know that you don't even have to watch your team to know they're going to be in? Like, for example, if Georgia goes 9-3, do you think they're in the playoff? Yes, they're in the playoff. If Alabama goes 8-4, but the 4 losses were to top 10 teams, would they get in? Yes. If a team like Oklahoma was to go up and lose 3 games, only one of those to a team that was not ranked, would they get in? Yes, because that is exactly the kind of thing that happens because they are a Power 4 school. They get the advantage. That's it. You want more fun competition to increase competition across the entire FBS, you need to keep the conference champs in. You do that, I'm more in favor of this. You tweak the format, I think you got better chances, but I hate this. You eliminate the intrigue of being a conference champ, the impact of it, and you eliminate the importance of big rivalries during rivalry week. And if that's really a big problem, then you take those rivalry week games, you have to make them earlier in the season. Where the reason why we do it late in the season is because your rivals could be the reason you don't win a championship. They could be the reason you miss out on the conference championship. They could be the reason you don't even make the playoff. That's why we love it. There's always high stakes on the line. And if you do it this way, you're eliminating the high stakes because the juggernaut teams would win every time and have almost automatic bids every year. And to stay on this college football topic, I think it's time that we get into one team in particular who has reshaped their offense because of a transfer portal guy that they landed. Darian Mensah transferred over from Duke this offseason to the Miami Hurricanes, going to the U. So we have to ask ourselves an important question. What does Mensah bring to this team? Yes, there was a whole legal battle, litigation stuff, but in the end, Mensah is a Hurricane. So what is this Hurricane offense going to look like with Mensah at the helm, especially when this offense needs a much-needed boost in the arm that they didn't really have with Carson Beck? So let's take a look at this play. This is the first play I want to take a look at here. Okay, this is one of the completions he makes here on 4th and 4 early in the game. Let's look at what happens here. Watch the outside receiver here on the bottom, 18. He's going to work his way upfield, okay? 8's giving him a lot of loose coverage here. I'm guessing he's hoping for some safety support. Tight end's occupying here. But notice how Mensah's taking his time here in the pocket, standing strong, stepping up, firing with confidence, and 18's able to break across before the safety's able to close the space. That linebacker attacking forward to pick up the running back is really what opens this up more than anything else. As you'll see, 47 is out of position here. He's going downhill because his assignment is to stay on the running back, which means this is more of a man look, man-to-man assignments. No real zone coverage here outside of the back, outside of the deep safeties. But 18 climbs up. Mensah sees it. He's got a spot. And the ref turns to get out of the way too. So that helps a lot. Here goes Mensah on this next play. It's a low snap, and he's got to make the most of it. He's trying to keep the play alive. He's just going to throw it away. Nothing you can do in that situation, but you want a guy who's going to try to keep the play alive as best as he can, but also knows when to get rid of it. Pre-snap, we see here it's wide here. We got 2 on the left, 1 on the right. We have 6 on the line. They like to keep their tight ends on the line. It's typically what the Duke offense likes to do quite a lot. But look, they're showing 5 on the line, potential high rush situation. They have a man advantage, but what happens here? They fake the handoff. Look at the way the protection is aligned. This corner is now coming down. Here he comes on the attack. I'm sure you see him on the screen right here. They sent an extra blitzer. They mixed it up. He's going downhill. This is an assignment here. This guy's watching here, and this guy's watching both ways. He's going to try and throw maybe a feel out the left, but he's going to occupy this guy middle. And 15's trying to figure out, do I come around this way or do I go around that way? But either way, the most important thing is that this guy is coming downhill and there's nothing you can do about it. And this defender back here is going to rotate to the left side to go pick up whatever's going on here with this receiver, whether he's going to run like this, maybe cut it short, come across the middle, something. But it's a 3rd and 8 situation. This is going to be a tough play to pull off. So there you go. Fake the handoff. 8 follows through. He's calling it out, saying he's keeping it. He's keeping it. They jump up because they thought he was going to throw. He didn't. And now he's in full pursuit. The O-line gets beat here on the blitz. And now it's a 3-man pursuit. Everything is not there. Mensah's already decided to throw this football away. It's not enough time. Even though 7 technically completes the route here, there's nothing he could do. I think that could have been a first down catch right there, but there was more risk for that to be a turnover. You'll see it here again. Watch the way 7's going to work around to beat this corner on a second move, okay? He's going to come around here. He's going to just turn it upfield, and he's going to just hook it back and just sit here. 23, technically, if he fires this right now and gets it quick, it would be easier, but he's off balance. He's not in a solid base. This is not going to be a good throw. So we're seeing here from Mensah in this offense, it was kind of capped in some ways. There was a lot of questions we have here about what they're able to pull off. So one's going to shift from a tight look to he's going to go outside. And he's playing well off of him. And we've got 4 on the line. None of them are rushing. But people are watching the tight end. Somebody's picking up the tight end here. They're playing coverages. He's going to take them. Middle guy's going to take 20. But watch 7 work his way outside here. Boom. Beautiful completion. Great placement. They're not going to give more attention to that because this is like film look. But once again, 7 working from what looks to be the inside here. And he just hits him with a nice stutter step. I want you to watch this receiver on the stutter step. See what he does. Going boop, 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 boop. And he's just going to go ahead and try to pop his way out. Okay, his release is good. He's going to come up. He's chopping his feet, but still making his way upfield. Usually I don't love them doing that much chopping for so early in the route because it kills so much time. But in this case, the quarterback gets enough time that this is okay. But look at how he kind of like sells it and like kind of like throws his body forward to show like he's going to the inside. And the corner bites. And by the time he goes to adjust, the momentum of the receiver is carrying upfield. And this corner is not going to be able to close the gap. And Mensah recognizes and puts it in a great spot over the top for him to make this catch. So we already see that Mensah's got some touch here that could work in the vertical game. Do we have anything on the ground that could work for him? Well, good decision making here. He was wide open. Nobody was there for 18. They were expecting a run here. Look at 8 come down here. Get downhill to try to pick up whatever's going on here because they were expecting a potential run from Mensah. That doesn't happen. All of a sudden, 18 wide open on a blown coverage. This was a blown play by the defense. And that leads to a nice touchdown here. That's another great throw against Clemson, who's usually very sticky with coverage here. Watch him off this back foot, holding, and then he steps up to avoid the tackle, and he just lightly puts his ball, just enough touch to hit him back shoulder to make him go back, makes the catch, keeps his toes in. Doesn't matter if it's a holding on the offense, it's a good testament to what he was able to do. We have 6 going. There's 6 here to protect with the extra support from the running back here. And he tries to step up, but a good move back here from 95 is going to get him where he's got to go. And he's completely out of position. There's no saving this play. Him trying to fire it over the middle was a bad decision. You got to throw that one away. See how he starts going downhill early? Mensah sees it. He knows that this spot's going to be open. He's watching it. He knows Zero's going to be his guy. Fires it right away. So he's recognizing it as he's getting the snap of where the movements are on the defense. That recognition is key. It's why Miami likes a guy like this. This fits very well for their offense. There you go. Back shoulder, not going to work. That was bad on his part. Once again, let's see. He didn't set very well on his base. You see what's going on there? He's a little stiff. There's some stiffness there. I don't like that. Okay, watch Mensah here. Okay, he's going to take the snap. 2, 3, 4. Okay, hits that back foot. Does a little toe tap, goes to throw it, but he doesn't throw into his motion very well here. It looks like he kind of got locked up on that leg there or in that hip, and it kind of limited his mobility on this throw. It ends up going too far out of bounds. He just puts it in a bad spot. That time it was better. He is a little stiff in the hips, I will say, when it comes to throwing. I could see it, but it's not terrible. It's like inconsistent. Like there's moments where the hips are fluid. There's moments where they're inconsistent and he gets a little stuck. 4-man rush. Fifth man coming from the secondary from the right side. He's got a free run, except a great block pickup by the running back here. He fires this one over the middle, completed there. This is good looks here, okay? Because look, this is this outside guy here from the top of your screen, top right. He's the one that's going to come across the field here and make this catch. Mensah saw that he's got an opening, he's got a lead, fires it. Now, this was a concept that probably was a full field that time, but it was easy for him to read and diagnose. And there's a 5-man rush. They've got 5 on the line with an extra help from the running back, who's just going to slip out, but that's covered. Dump off option gone. Really good coverage work here from Clemson, but for Mensah, he's staring down 2 as that was his intended target here, but he doesn't get out of it well. He ends up hitting the dirt, and that's what causes the sack. One more time again after this. Just keep an eye on 2 down here. He's going to work his way in. And he tries to spin back, but he hits the ground. That fall changes the game. Because now you've got this double coverage here. This one over here, one-on-one. There's not enough time for him to get this ball out to go vertical on left or right. And even the dump off is covered well. There's nowhere to go on 3rd and 10. He's going to end up taking the sack. So that's not really as much on him as it is on the play call and the approach from the defensive coordinator from Clemson. But again, you're seeing little things here and there. It's a little bit of inconsistencies, mainly in his throwing motion, I see. Here's another sack he's going to take right here in the shotgun. They send a lot of pressure here. Honestly, the answer would be to dump tight end, but he's reading left. I want to give some flowers really quick, though, to this 1D lineman. Right here. Just watch how smooth this guy is going to attack here, compromise the pocket, and just get straight to Mensah. He doesn't even see him. And I think Mensah missed out on a potential route here coming across the middle, but that's on him. I think he had an open spot. We're going to see more here right now. So he's going to work up on this guard here, and he's able to work, and with the good chopping motion, with good arms, he's able to get through that inside shoulder, and he's just going to run his way through here. The problem is Mensah's reading this left outside option without realizing the pressure at hand. He's going to squeeze through with the good little, I want to say he kind of like dipped his shoulder to get under, so this way the lineman could get a grip on him. And now this D lineman guy from Clemson is going to have a free run at Mensah. But he needs to get this out, and he's stuck glued to the left side. He's not seeing what's opening up over the middle. And he gets hit for it. So a couple things mainly in his recognition. It's like he's not progressing through his reads at the pace we're looking for. That's definitely going to be something to watch here. Rolling right, fires, got his guy. But I like the improvisation there. That's incomplete. But watch. Improv rolling right. It's a good ball in a good spot. He just couldn't hold on to it. And the formation's interesting too. It's all chaotic. It's like all the linemen fell up front, but now you have free runs and they're all going right. It was a design rollout, and he's going right. He'll fire on the move. Look where this ball is. Right there. That's a great spot for this ball. Receiver just couldn't come down with it. So we're seeing moments where Mensah's putting this ball in good spots. He's making some good improv plays, but sometimes during his reads, he's missing stuff going on around him. He's got to be more aware of what's happening in the pocket around him in order to survive these kind of things. And I think for Miami, that's going to be the number one focus you have to worry about with Mensah. Mensah can move and he can run around, yes, but a lot of it's going to come down to his decision-making on quite a few plays. And this is a bad throw here, okay? Fake the handoff. He's going to be under pressure from 8. He knows it's coming. The ball is just not delivered well. It's a miss. One more time. What happens? He's rushing through his motions, through his routine. And when he goes to throw, look at his base compared to his previous throws, okay? How wide is that base? His feet are far apart here. I don't like the width on the feet. That's going to affect how much torque you can build here. And also, you don't have much control over your ball here, over your throw. And as he goes to throw it, here he comes forward, and now he's sailing it behind him. Which I know was not his intended point. And that's also a bad, just not great targeting there. He didn't put it in the right spot for him. But either way, they get the first down. So now it's 1st and 10, which 30 seconds. Here he goes, firing left. It's broken up. Now look, he's reading middle. Now he's going to go across to the left side to 7. And let me tell you something. Going to 7 here is not a good move. So a couple pre-snap bad decisions here that could be really, really bad. Now this is a strong stance. Watch the stance this time. Watch his feet this time. When he goes to fire, they're more narrow. They're not as wide as he goes to throw. I want that known. That base I was not joking about from that last throw. The one that probably should have been picked. This time around, look how close. Look at what happens when he lands here, okay? He's keeping everything. That means he's going to try to push up forward, which he does. And he's keeping himself at a solid spacing. Not as wide this time. It's a little bit more tight. And as he goes to set the throw, look at the weight. He's got weight on this. He doesn't have as much weight on this plant foot to fire forward. It's more on his back. But he's going to use his hips to send that weight forward to help put some more power behind this ball. And it follows through beautifully. Way over the top. And placed very well. And that helps them get back in the game and tie it up. So he has his moments. We can see it there, especially in the hips more than anything else. So as we know, what is it about his tape now that makes Miami so intrigued by him? In short, I think when we look at the tape there, and I'm only using the Clemson tape because for competition purposes, I like the Clemson tape more than anything else. In his case, I think for Mensah, some of this stuff that you saw in there that was not very good, some of it you could chop up as a bad play call and a really good call by the defense and good adjustments made. Sure. But some of the throws were inconsistent. Some of his technique, his footwork was not clean. There were times where his footwork had issues. And we noticed that. For Miami, in this case, I expect the protection to be better, which would be super beneficial. I do expect also that they're going to try and make the most of the vertical aspect of his game. He can throw a deep ball. We've already seen that. We just saw that big throw at the end of the game there. That's about a 40 to 50 yard throw. That's not bad. That's not bad. That actually could be very useful for this offense. And Miami does have still big play receivers, but nothing where he's got to throw a 60-yard bomb through the air or 50-yarder. It's not necessary. They're more tight-knit. They're more about exposing middle coverages more than anything else. I think that would be more beneficial for Mensah. But as you saw, sometimes his read progression's a little inconsistent. He kind of rushes through plays when he feels the pressure. And when you rush through your reads, that's where errors are made. You make a mistake. It also affects your form. It affects your routine. It affects your follow through. And that caused a couple discrepancies that could have definitely affected him if those catches would have been made by those defenders. But otherwise, this is a guy who I think for Miami, they like his arm talent. They know he can sling that ball. They know he can lead. And I know for a fact that they believe that this guy is going to make the most of the vertical offense. So that's more of why I like this for Mensah. He has that ability to extend drives with his legs, which is awesome, or extend plays. But I think his form can be inconsistent. I think his footwork, mainly his placement when he goes to set his base for on his throws, not necessarily the strongest, but there's a lot to like about a lot of things. And I think for Miami, they saw a lot more positive traits that made them say, okay, we want to do this transfer. Let's take him. Let's make him our starter. And in an ACC that's expected to be more competitive with Clemson trying to climb their way back up the ladder, I think this could be very good. And also Florida State too. Florida State had a bad year. Florida State's trying to get back up there, so this will be a good chance to have that happen as well. But overall, this is solid tape for college football. From the NFL level, I think there's going to be things that he's going to have to seriously work on. As of right now, this looks like something where he probably is going to end up being a mid-round pick. We're talking probably about 4th round. This is giving 4th round, 5th round look right now. I'm not seeing anything necessarily that's having me put him high up here. Again, measurables are one thing, but the tape says another. And he shows a lot of decent stuff on tape that's promising, but definitely needs some polishing and development. And I think if he gets into a good system there with Cristobal, there's a chance he's going to be a more polished product and a more desirable quarterback when we hit the draft season. And for our feel-good moment of the weekend, we're going to take it to the Savannah Bananas. I don't think you guys are expecting me to say Savannah Bananas today, but we have an interesting video coming out from the Savannah Bananas. And we had this little moment unfold for the Bananas.
Alvin Kamara, one of the greatest running backs in this generation. And now he's going to come in the pitch run.
Alvin Kamara not only gets to pinch run in the game, but he also gets to be one of the big runs in the game for the Bananas as they played at the Volunteer Stadium in Tennessee at Rocky Top, which, fun fact, that's where Alvin Kamara played college ball. So it's a really cool moment. We don't often get to see these kind of players go out there and have this kind of fun and, but beyond just the fun of just being out there and taking that bat or throwing pitches and running the bases, these guys got to score. He got to score a run, which we can't say that for every single celebrity guest they've had. This guy got to pinch run and be a run in the game that's accounted for. I don't know. It's a feel good moment. It feels pretty good I like the family fun aspect of the Savannah Bananas, and they're clearly doing something right. It's one of the most profitable sports models currently out there in the sports business world, and it is working big time. Alvin Kamara scoring run for the Savannah Bananas in baseball. That's crazy. You know what else is crazy? We reached the end of this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you for being here today. I know it's a longer episode than we usually do, but I do appreciate you all for being here. And this has been one of those episodes. It has been one of those episodes today. This was a long one. It was a lot of film work. It was a lot of editing involved here. And this is probably the most we've talked about college football on this show in quite a while. But what I can say is that there's a lot to like about this college football season. And on our next episode on Friday, we're going to do a deeper dive into what to keep an eye on this season and the big name storylines in the game of college football as we get into the final stretch before the season begins at the end of the summer in August. So until then, take care. We will see y'all soon, and make sure you like, subscribe, and share the show to everybody you know outside of where you're listening or watching on Spotify and YouTube. Until we see you again on Friday, take care.